Welcome to Undertow, Realm's podcast of the weird and the wicked. I'm your host and producer, Fred Greenhalgh, and today your storyteller as we embark on a new season I'm calling Familiar Haunts. What is this new season all about? Well, as the title implies, it's about things that trigger memories and echoes of other times. Stories that remind us that ghosts are really just manifestations of the unresolved past. Our stories will be a selection of new and classic horror fiction I've curated, kicking off today with an original story written and performed by me, inspired by something weird that happened to me while visiting my childhood home. To set the scene, we're headed into the fog-racked down east region of Maine, where I was born. This is a haunted county, though to be fair, Maine is haunted across all its 16 counties. It is surely no accident that Stephen King's headwaters are found here. But where we're going today is further away and lonelier than the locations that inspired Derry or Castle Rock. We're visiting the parts of Maine you won't see on a postcard, past the last of the tourist traps and approaching the eastern edge of the U.S.-Canada border. Here, the road frays at the edges. Here, the ruins of old dam works sprout from the river like dinosaur bones. Here, you see an abandoned church with peeling white paint, the name of the church and its congregation long forgotten. And here, taking a turn off the cracking asphalt and switching to a gravel road, you might hear ravens croon overhead as we visit the site where once stood the family farmhouse. The haunted farmhouse, I might add. Today it lies buried. Literally buried. The house was demolished 20-odd years ago, and like my ancestors in an earlier time, it was buried in the hayfield out back. Why does one go and bury the remains of a home? And what might be revealed if one were to dig it up? Get your shovel ready. We're about to explore some familiar haunts in Episode 1, The Buried Farmhouse. And be sure to stick around after the performance to hear more from me on the real-life events that inspired today's tale. My earliest nightmares were of the tree in the front lawn. White oak, my memory tells me it was, a monster one, close to 100 years old, and when winter winds would get whipping, it'd creak, its long tendril branches scraping against my bedroom window. Tick, tick, tick. This would nearly always be accompanied by a full moon backlighting the tree, casting creeping shadows against my Star Wars bedspread. The final key to my childhood terror symphony was the moaning of the wind, rattling the loose window panes, banshee wails to accompany the claw-like tapping on the window. From an early age, I knew that unspeakably evil things lurked just on the other side of that pane of glass. We're never more than a thin veneer of protection from the darkness, and sometimes the darkness gets in. Well, the tree's long gone, was long gone even when I was 20 years younger. I rub my hands on what remains of the trunk. The tree rings have become mush, the stump dissolving like a papier-mâché doll left in the rain. The house is gone too. Yet it's strange how, standing here, I can still feel its presence, like a planet popped out of gravity. The house gone, but the presence of where it once stood palpable. As I stand on overgrown grass where the ancient wood cook stove once stood, I can almost smell the pancakes cooked on Sundays. But the pleasures of maple-soaked hotcakes was an exception here. I'm happy to see the house gone. How can a building embody a sense of evil? Horror movies have been asking this question for a century now. A chicken and egg question, really. Does evil make itself at home in the basement, finding comfort amongst the damp and wet things, the spiders and ossified rat skeletons? Or does it climb into the rafters in the attic, nestling in the forgotten furs in the steamer trunk or abandoned photo albums? Or, like mildew, does it take root in the untended building, creep through imperceptibly until its infection is uncanny, a presence that twists occupants to do its bidding? Or is evil its own consciousness? An alien thing, a thing humans call evil, but only because we're the ones imposing a sense of morality? Or is it the opposite? Is evil nothing more than the afterimages of the horror found in the human heart? Does a haunting happen when humans do evil things which stain the soul of a location, like red wine on a wedding dress? We can bleach it, but that axe murder never quite washes out of the building. The sun cracks forth out of cumulus clouds, and here I am, literally standing in a ray of sunshine, feeling dumb. What the hell am I doing on a fine summer day in August, standing at the remains of an old house on an overgrown hayfield, instead of literally anywhere else in a state known as vacation land? I could dive into the clear, cold waters of a lake not a quarter mile away, or hike a mountain trail ringed by scrubby pines, or spy for ospreys. Hell, I could be stuffing my face with a lobster roll, a crustacean held together with a thin veneer of mayonnaise, the buttered country kitchen roll, fried to perfection, sloshed down with a cold beer. I should be somewhere where I can hear herring gulls, where the smell of brine is so thick in my nostrils I could almost spoon it off. That would be an August day in Maine. Not standing here contemplating the nature of evil while grasshoppers land on me. The old house is not entirely gone. The porch, yes. The entryway and living room and wraparound parlor and stairs and 3 bedrooms and attic and even the basement, yes. But the summer kitchen still stands. In fact, it's been painted and reshingled recently and looks rather handsome. And later, I realize it's this moment that my short detour to see what was left of the old family plot becomes something more. How easily we tumble from sleepwalking through our everyday into something much larger than that. And once we're on a path, it can be easy to follow it to its inevitable conclusion. It's only much later, when we're shocked out of a somnolescent fog, that we marvel at how deeply we wandered into the darkness, as easily as an oak tree might shatter a single glass window pane. But the actual act of taking a few steps away from my car and toward the old summer kitchen is incredibly easy. The barn is maybe 12 feet by 30 feet long. It's narrow edge facing me, a single roller garage door with 2 plate glass windows like watching eyes. Except I'm the watcher now, as I pad through the knee-high grass and creep up my tiptoes, and act much like the one the 10-year-old boy I was long ago would do. And I gaze in, past the cobwebs and the quarter-sized barn spiders, through the salt air grime and to where the farm implements catch the summer light. What was I expecting to see? Surely something other than hay tines, a couple shovels propped against a vertical post, a flat red tractor, the same color as the building itself, and the apples hanging from the wild tree out back. There are some hooks and chains hanging at the far end of the barn, hardly something that would spook someone who knows the reality of farm life, the times the tractor will need to rescue a smaller vehicle from the ditch or haul a firewood tree from the forest beyond the hayfield. Though, in my mind's eye, where I'm standing now is not a garage door bay. It's a stairway up to the main kitchen of the house, and I've run into the summer kitchen to hide from a presence which is lurching toward me. And I realize too late that the barn door exit is latched from the outside, so I have no choice but to turn and look back as something, not mere tree branches at the time, reaches out and, "Help you, stranger?" I drop back to the balls of my feet, spin, feeling like a thief caught with half his body thrust through a shop window at midnight. There's an old-timer in front of me, the neighbor across the street. Like a postcard Maine friendly greeting party. He's got a corn pipe, a Red Sox ball cap, blue jeans, and a t-shirt with an eagle gripping an AR-15 in its talons. "Oh, hi," I say. "I used to live here." Yeah," he replies, deciding to take a closer look at me. The dour look cracks, much like the sun did when it shattered those cumulus clouds. "Oh, well, Jason Crow. You're Jenny's boy." "Yeah, that's me," I say. Though my mother went by Jennifer, not Jenny. "Oh, shame what happened," he says. "Hell of a thing." He lingers. I suppose this means I'm supposed to say something. "Yes, it was." "Oh, you must remember me then, huh? Vernon." He extends a hand. Nothing but Mainer hospitality now. I shake it. "Oh, hi, Vernon, of course. Remember your son Dewey helped after..." Well, after is enough. Vernon knows. Hell of a thing. Yeah, anyways, I was just passing through, going to Wedding Down in Cutler. Thought I'd stop in and see what the place looks like now that they... I gesture non-committally towards the empty site of the home. "Now that they tore it down" is clearly how that sentence ends. Vernon puffs on his pipe. Do you keep an eye on the place these days?" I say. It's a leading question. Of course he keeps an eye on the place. There's nowhere else for his eyes to go, really. Vernon lives across the street in a small farmhouse almost identical to the one that used to stand here. The 2 buildings' front porches once faced each other. Back when we were kids, Vernon's son Dewey was so comfortable with us, we'd find him rooting around in our pantry for a bowl of cereal some mornings. We always stocked Lucky Charms, and that was a sign of being bougie out here in Washington County. "Oh, that I do," he says. "Not much worth breaking in for, but teenagers like to get in there all the same, see if they'd take that tractor for a spin. Had to haul it out of the stream by John Deere twice now. Never mind all the empties I gotta fish out of there, too. Oh, I keep an eye on it for the new owners now." He says new owners with a dash of suspicion. "Someone from away. Never see them much, but they like to keep the tractor and the hayfield. Send him a picture once in a while. Dewey helps me do it on that phone of his. Can you believe that? Phones, taking pictures." He takes a thoughtful puff on his pipe. "Yeah, owner's a doctor, I think. I think he entertains notions they'll build a house here when he retires. Until then, I think he likes thinking part of him's country, though he lives in Boston." I grunt at that. "Build a new house, really?" "Oh, yeah, so he says. I don't take stock of nothing until I see it in front of me, though. Something about that land is..." Well, he cuts himself off, like a cloud's passed over the sun again. "Whatever happened to the old house?" I say. "I mean, I know they tore it down. The roof was all but caving in at the time, but by the time my mom passed away. But what do you do with the house? Haul it away?" "Oh, you don't know?" he says, pausing ever slightly to see the flash in my eyes that tells him I don't. "Why, they buried it." "Buried it?" He shrugs. "Ain't so unusual. Dig a big hole, use a tractor to haul it in. Dewey and some of his friends worked on that crew. I think the basement they managed to plow into the ground, but the house itself, Yeah, you can still see if you look close. See that ridge there? He points to an almost imperceptible rise in the contour of the hayfield. Huh, damn, I say. Yeah, they offered it to the fire department to use as burn practice, but fire department wouldn't have it. Suspicious lot they is. So they tore her down. No, I wouldn't grow no food crops over there, but hey, will grow on top of rafters and shingles, why not? We seeded it the following summer, and you'd never suspect, would ya? I shake my head. Sure, it all makes sense, but it never occurred to me you could just bury a house. I'm gonna go take a walk over there if that's all right. Yeah, be my guest, he says. Nice jaw wagging with you. He relights his pipe and starts making his way back to his own house. And that was the last I ever saw Vernon. It was more than 30 years ago now. Time has calcified the memory, a veneer which allows the horror to be perceived at a remove. It allows the rational mind in the daytime to scrub out those nighttime horrors, the truth which is felt but not explainable. Time and physical distance allows you to believe, well, that didn't really happen. I was a child then. My imagination was wild. I didn't really see what I thought I saw or heard what I thought I heard. Even though underneath that veneer, you know it's not true. You know that the rot is still there, that palpable thing, the thing that creaks as it comes up the staircase. I don't know if the thing which lived in the house was the same as the ghost lights. I saw both. I've also heard them called deadlights or will-o-wisps, the same dancing light which might appear on dark nights in this back field, the field which is now a graveyard for the old house. I don't think I perceived the lights themselves as dangerous, just uncanny. They reminded me of fireflies, an actual favorite phenomenon. Those midsummer evenings where school was over and summer might stretch on forever, the twinkling lampyridae shimmering in a millennia-old ritual. The ghost lights were different. They were bigger, for one, and not random. They also didn't coincide with sentimental evenings in summertime. Instead, they were more likely to appear in edges of weather, the gloomy gray days that precede the first snowstorm or a nor'easter, as if they were harbingers of new weather systems, blinking in and out of existence, dancing their wild dance as if to echo the coming snowflakes or tossing autumn leaves, a visible manifestation of the unseen forces that grip our reality. No, the ghost lights were amusing, even inspiring, a reminder that the uncanny lies just out there, that nature has more wonders than humans are ever liable to document. The only unease I felt about them was knowing they weren't just harbingers of a change in weather. They also meant that it would soon be walking the building. What was it exactly? Well, I wouldn't call it it if I knew. A presence, I suppose? A ghost? A malevolent entity that lived in my family house? Why was it there? But as I explained it, I don't know. Was the house built on cursed ground? That would be rich, given that it was later buried in that same ground. Did something terrible happen in the house? Given that the 1918 influenza epidemic ravaged the family inside, sure. Do any of those things give rise to a presence that creeps up and down staircases at nights, that creaks open attic doors, that beckons you to enter the basement where the boiler is running but the fresh air vent is clogged? I don't know. All scientific inquiry begins with observation, so it's only the observation I can recount. The oak trees I've already talked about. But what I didn't say earlier is that the oak trees' banshee wails were a form of meditation, a distraction my grateful mind took from the evil that wasn't on the far side of a pane of glass, but already inside, taking careful steps, creeping toward me, asking me, "Isn't it your time already? Surely it must be your time." It's lonely. That's what the thing is. It's lonely and forgotten in one's company. Who could blame it? Who wants to be lost for time beyond time, to be creeping up and down stairs and hallways, tapping at bedroom doors, eager to be let in but with no one welcoming us? Usually on those nights, when I knew it was awake, I would be paralyzed in bed, wide-eyed, staring at those oak branch silhouettes on my wall, willing the sound to stop, the halting breath to be inaudible, to replace the sounds of the presence with a simple parlor trick of the tapping oak tree. Only once did I look over my shoulder. After I moved out, my mother lived here alone. I seldom visited. I much preferred she visit me. Leave down East Maine. Come to Portland. Down here there's reliable internet, 24-hour pharmacies, parking garages, and more restaurants per capita than anywhere else but San Francisco. And she did, in the early days, before she physically just couldn't drive the 3 hours. There were a handful of times she visited with a friend as a chauffeur, but her friends were aging like she was and were gelled into the inertia of the place. Down East Maine, a place like quicksand, easy to enter but hard to leave. So almost imperceptibly, the distance between us grew. What used to be quarterly or more frequent visits became sporadic, first for the major holidays and then skipping even those. I had my own life by then, and she let the tether get longer, made it too easy and permissible to forget to return her calls or keep what calls we did have quite brief. So it was easy to ignore the signs, to ignore calls from my friends, even neighbors like Vernon, that my mother really needed someone to be looking after her, that she wasn't right, that there was something in the house, something which was doing something to her. I intended to. I had all the intentions of the world in going up there and spiriting her away, finding a house with an in-law apartment or assisted living or anything really, other than living in that house which got hungrier as the family drifted away, leaving just one person to feed on. No one keeps carbon monoxide detectors in rambling farmhouses. The conventional wisdom is that they are so shoddily built, what with granite stone foundations and timbers whose peg joints have creaked out of true over time, that natural ventilation is all that's needed to vent the poison. And that might be true if the intake vent for one's boiler didn't become the winter den for a family of mice who found it all too easy to hoard Dryerland into what, to them, was a warm little cave. And as fate would have it, there was a whopping nor'easter coming that year, the kind where you might see will-o-wisps, the kind where the being that haunts those stairs and hallways would be at its greatest strength, the kind where you would run and run that oil boiler, desperate to keep the house to a comfortable temperature even as the heat leaked through the shoddily insulated walls, thinking the equipment was safe, not realizing that the mouse-clogged vent pipe meant the carbon monoxide was trapped in the basement, trickling upward, odorless, invisible, deadly. She called me that night. I still have the voicemail. I was enjoying drinks with some friends at a new restaurant that had opened up. Small plates with upscale twists on Maine favorites, microbrews, fine wine. We were talking about movies that scared us when we were little, and why the hell were they trying to remake them? I ignored the call. By the time I got back to my apartment 3 beers later, I called her back. I really did, but by then the storm had already knocked power out to her road. She still had a landline phone. There's no one I could reach to check on her. Well, it can wait till morning, I thought. But for her, morning never came.
Mike, help me. I'm not alone in here. I'm not alone. She's walking. She's walking toward me.
Vernon's son, Dewey, was the one who found her. He was still living at home back then, and when Mom wouldn't return my phone calls, I dug up his parents' number from a phone book. Can you believe that? I still had one from 2005 on a bookshelf near my writing desk for some reason. And by gods, the number of the Vernon Mussey residence rang right up. I told Dewey about the weird voicemail, and he headed right over. Had to shovel through 2 feet of snow to get up the front steps. Whatever I may have thought about him and his proclivity to invade our privacy when he was a kid, I forgave him after he entered that house and saw what he saw, and for braving the poison air himself. He didn't tell me too many details. I didn't need to know. Hearing Dopey Dewey turn into a blubbering, incoherent wreck was enough. I was able to make all the arrangements without having to return to Washington County. I had her body cremated, and a courier got her to Augusta, which was as far north as I was willing to go at the time. We had a small reception in a non-denominational chapel in Westbrook with a celebrant provided by the venue. Few friends traveled from down East Maine to be there, which suited me. I didn't want their cold stares, their unspoken but obvious accusations, the general sense of judgment that I was lacking, that I was inferior as a son. What kind of son would leave their mother to die alone, their eyes would say, even while their mouths said the expected things. So sorry for your loss. And she thought the world of you. Mom wanted to be buried in down East Maine, but after what happened, I couldn't bring myself to do it. Her ashes are still in a nondescript black vase in my bedroom. Getting rid of the house was easier than the funeral arrangements. My mother's estate was insolvent. She'd accrued a small mountain of medical debt, which devoured her meager checking account and forced the sale of the house. I was happy to sell as is for a fire sale price, which left a hospital writing off $50,000 in unpaid bills. I never communicated with the new owners. They had no interest, really. There was nothing I needed to see or retrieve from that house. And so when I heard, via Dewey, who had since moved out of his folks' place, that they tore the farmhouse down, I shed no tears. It was relief. Whatever walked those creaky stairs, real or imagined, was gone now. Or so I thought. The crickets are cranking at a high register now. I'm in their domain, the tall grass, a hayfield ready for the sickle. There are no scars in the land where the house is buried. As Vernon said, pumpkins, peas, and beans would all struggle to grow where the soil is fertilized by a demolished home. But it's proving no trouble to Timothy and Quackgrass. Why would I ever want to excavate this soil? Is actually the third question to cross my mind. The first was, where do I find a shovel? Followed by a quick answer, in the summer kitchen, turned hay barn, which was followed by a second question, well, how do I get into the hay barn? And as for that third, perhaps soul-saving question, I give it little creed. Like that first step I took onto the property, sometimes when you get going down the road, it all brings its own momentum. Sometimes the answer to, why would I do this, is rather simple. Because I can. I doubt Vernon would be much impressed with me excavating the hayfield in the middle of broad daylight. It may not be his official duty to watch over it, but he's standard issue Maine nosy neighbors talk. There's no way I'd get much digging done without him asking questions I would rather not answer. So I resolved to come back that evening, on my way back from the wedding. I now pronounce you man and wife, or should I say, dude and woman! There is delighted uproar at the jovial, irreverent tone of the officiant, Billy, I think his name is, a friend of the groom's who got ordained online, special for today's ceremony. We stand on a seaweed-splattered rocky cove, which sits at a flattish section of a 40-acre mowed field, the back lot of the bride's parents' house. The pleasant land breeze which started the ceremony has switched into a biting ocean breeze now, just as the dazzling sunset breaks from ambers and crimsons into deep violet. A postcard of a homegrown wedding in Maine, except the postcards never show you the backside of the stunning sunset, the teeth that come with the ocean wind, the tendrils of fog that infiltrate even an August afternoon. But I can see it, a fat black fog bank rolling in on the horizon, a hefty belt of blackness that will consume the festivities in a blanket of wet, salty mist. Though I expect by the time the fog gets here, an hour or two from now, this crowd will be too drunk to care. As the ceremony closes, the house band, situated on a makeshift stage of pallets and plywood, rips into a heartfelt acoustic cover of Metallica's Nothing Else Matters. The wedding party exits through piano power chords and a sweet smell of mesquite from the pit smoker currently roasting a whole hog. 2 kegs are tapped, the groomsmen have been passing around a flask, and there's a stack of scrap wood and brush taller than me ready to go up in flames. Dense fog may soon saturate this field, but no one here will feel it. Which means it's time for me to bid my farewell. And I almost get away unnoticed. Holy shit, Mike, is that you? Nothing Else Matters suddenly changes into abrupt driving chords of Ride the Lightning. Cheers ring out from 20 or 30 of the maybe 100 or more people here. Oh yeah, it's going to be a party. A very specific kind of party. Oh, I didn't think you'd come, said the voice, and maybe if I started for a dead run, I could get free. But I spin. Hey, Dewey, I say. Vernon's son, Dewey. Maybe 5'5", stocky build, buzz cut. He's come to the wedding in his cleanest pair of blue jeans and a polo shirt. A big grin with crooked teeth and an eyebrow scar. And God, the most terrible mustache. Man, it's good to see you, he says, grappling me in a bear hug, accompanied with a liquor smell that could take down a small animal. My cynical brain clocks this as a very specific kind of trap. High school friendicus familiaricus. A creature who is able to approach without notice, the sense of propriety keeping the prey from escaping. And then you're numbed by cheap cologne and Evan Williams' green label. I wasn't sure you'd come, he repeats, shaking his head. I wasn't sure I would either, I say, and all the reasons I didn't want to be here collide on me simultaneously. I hated high school. Fled this county as soon as I had somewhere else to throw down and hardly ever looked back. So why did I friend the groom on Facebook? Why didn't I immediately quit the messenger chat he added me to, the bombardment of local yokels who'd never moved on from down East Maine and took my addition to the chat as an endorsement of their lifestyle from the smart kid in their graduating class? It was cool seeing you the paper, Mike. How's life in Portland? Sarah Thompson, now Sarah Brock, would say, and Tim Ferry would correct her, "Hell, you mean northern New Hampshire?" and get a dozen thumbs up or laughing emoji responses. I think I got invited to this wedding as a joke, except, haha, I'm here, facing Dewey. It's nice to see everyone, I say, but I'm not feeling very well. I'm going to split. Split? Yeah, got a long ride ahead of me. You're not driving back to Portland tonight, are you? I shrug. That's the plan. It's not that bad, maybe 4 hours. I can get home before midnight. But you haven't had dinner. Jesus, you know Jimmy's dad spent all summer raising that pig he's cooking up tonight. And his uncle Marlo brewed 2 special beers. Come on, man, you can't bail on us, not after. Not after. Yeah, well, we both know how that sentence ends. You really helped me out, Dewey, I know. I didn't have it in me to come back home just then. I thought I did now, but I surveyed the scene below. They're plating up the hog. The beer is flowing freely. There's a circle of bridesmaids dressed in gold, spinning barefoot in mowed grass. Metallica gives way to, I shit you not, Def Leppard. How hard would it be to suck it up? To forget the times Dewey and his circle of friends stuck wads of gum in my chair and stole the short story notebooks I carried around through middle school, forcing me to do something embarrassing to get them back. There were moments when it was fun back in the day, wasn't it? Like those times wandering through the woods together, we might stumble across an abandoned hunting cabin, break in, find ourselves a quarter bottle of Jack Daniels or a 1980s Playboy calendar. After a couple of beers, I'd feel accepted, wouldn't I? Perhaps I even would be accepted. Didn't they bully me for the same reasons they tugged on girls' hair or lied about their sexual exploits? It was out of a misguided sense of affection. But affection it was all the same, wasn't it? Would it be wrong to get drunk with them now, paste on a fake smile, and just embrace the stupidity and absurdity of this backyard burner? Yeah, I got out, I'd be communicating, but it's okay that you didn't. There's nothing out there you don't have back here. My hands are clammy. Nervous energy, I think, but no, it's the fog. The sharp bite of air cooled by the deep Atlantic, infused with its brine, dragging dreamy summer clouds down to the ground. I'm not really feeling well, I say. Be good. Drink some beers for me, okay? I grin once, then disappear into the growing fog before Dewey has a chance to protest. It would have been very easy to do what I told Dewey I'd do. To continue south on Route 1, right past the turnoff to the old farmhouse road. The fog was thick now, so it'd be slow going, at least until I got close to Ellsworth. There, the road widens, and within an hour I'd be in Bangor, and from Bangor I could do 90 on the highway until almost home. But instead I pull off a woods road, about a quarter mile shy of Vernon's house, tucked in enough so you won't see my car from the road, and an easy walk to the site of the old farmhouse. I pop the trunk of my Civic and unzip my hiking bag. I brought camping gear just in case I'd ended up too drunk to drive out of the wedding. I quickly dig out a Coleman headlamp, my Leatherman, and swap my semi-formal leather shoes for a solid pair of hiking boots. I also slip on a rain jacket, best to keep my core warm. It could be a long night. Then I close the trunk and slink out towards the location of the buried house. The fog is thick enough to chew now. There's a distant rumble of thunder, the cold front barreling into the remnants of the previously warm summer's night. A flash, the road around me momentarily lit by lightning. Did I see? No, nothing. Tree branches. I thumb my headlamp into infrared mode and pad up the road. The lights are off at Vernon's house, as I'd expect. Early to bed, early to rise, all that. In infrared mode, with fog to help, I have no doubt I can slip out to the field undetected. I sneak off the roadway behind a rhododendron bush, squelching through a wet patch as I do, hoping my tracks will be washed away in the coming thunderstorms. I take a long arc towards the summer kitchen turned hay shed, out of range of the front porch lights at Vernon's house, should they come on. The ground is softer for a moment, and I realize I'm padding through grass that covers what was once our vegetable patch. Once upon a time, my mother paid me a nickel for every slug I doused with salt. And now I'm at the back side of the hay shed, where there's a pine-faced exterior door, padlocked. But it's one of the older, simpler padlock designs which leaves the screws exposed. My Leatherman's screwdriver extension fits, and I tentatively press down and twist counterclockwise. Lefty-loosey, righty-tighty. It's a task that requires focus, so I don't overthink what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, or what happens if someone comes across me just now. I extract the first two screws easily. As I start the third, a flash of lightning erupts behind me and my attention shifts. I press down too hard and strip the screw head out. Shit. I switch out the Phillips head for a flat bit. I'm able to rotate the screw back a quarter turn before it strips out again. But I have enough of the screw backed out that I'm able to switch to using my flathead as a pry bar. With a bit of effort, the remainder of the screw snaps free of the T111 siding, which has gone rotten. The fourth and final screw comes out easily, and the padlock tumbles free. I open the door carefully. It groans, ever so slightly. Not that there's anyone to hear me. The smell of hay, oil, diesel fuel, all hit me at once. Not animal dung. It's never been that kind of barn. But it's a nostalgic smell, all the same. A smell of times gone by, being young in a time of possibility, of honest work to preserve the ebbing summer. The fog is condensing now, such that there's a patter like drizzle on the shingles. I scan the room quickly. The dominant presence is the tractor, the baler, and the sickle mower, glowing a fluorescent red in the reflection of my headlamp. Incredibly, there's an old-fashioned scythe hanging on the far wall, probably last used 100 years ago, mounted high up as a reminder, perhaps, of how lucky we have it in the age of easy torque and fossil fuels. Beneath the scythe is a long-handled and short-handled spade. I grab the long-handled spade and head out into the night. It's satisfying, that sound the spade makes as it glides into the soil beneath the timothy grass. I clear spadeful and spadeful of soggy, grassy dirt. I don't think I've dug a hole since I was a teenager, but I fall into a familiar rhythm: dip, show, lift, repeat, as easily as I'd pick up bike riding again. I quickly clear away a patch of sod, and it's just dawning on me how needle in a haystack this whole motion is when the spade hits something hard. I kneel down and am initially disappointed. It's just a grapefruit-sized chunk of granite. I sink down into the wet soil and pry out the rock, glad I'd stashed work gloves in the pocket of my raincoat. The rock doesn't want to give at first, and I'm contemplating standing by and attacking it with a shovel when it does go loose, and with it, the ground beneath it gives. The rock comes out with such force that I fly over backwards, heaving the rock out in the field behind me. The surprise throw backward knocks the wind out of me, and for a moment my vision swims into starry blackness. As the stars coalesce back to the mist settling on me like a wool rug, I rise to a sitting position, chuckling, knocked flat by a fucking rock. I lean forward to the hole and see that removing the rock has exposed a rotten chunk of wood, and I'll be damned if it's not clapboard siding. I start prying clods of dirt out by the fistful. The clapboard breaks apart after I've exposed 2 or 3 feet of it, and I switch back to using the shovel. I quickly excavate the rest of the chunk, which in turn reveals 2 more pieces, and carefully hurl them into the field behind me, mindful that bent siding nails are sticking out of them like rusty porcupine quills. After the siding comes a mostly intact window frame, teeth-like chunks of glass sticking out of the edges, a doorknob, an iron handle from the front of a wood stove, more siding, then a grating screech as I bang against something larger still. I find what appears to be sheet metal, rusted in a few places but not rotted all the way through. I start clearing around it, scraping the edge of the shovel against a piece of metal that turns out to be at least 3 feet wide. I start clearing in the opposite direction and find the metal sheet rises slightly behind me. More digging, and a rectangle starts to take form. A final clod of dirt falls away, and I see a handle, and the shape seems to coalesce in front of my eyes. This is a basement bulkhead door, mostly intact. I stand staring at the door for an indeterminate amount of time, puzzling over how simply right it seems to be here, sitting more or less level inside a waist-deep hole, as if it still opened inward to the forgotten places underneath the old house, the realm of the furnace and the paint cans of the sump pump, a place of spiders and scattering rat tails. The door seems to twinkle now, and I freeze very still. My eyes adjust to the night vision afforded by the infrared headlamp. Hardly more than candlelight, but totally adequate for traveling in the dark and doing some basic digging. But now, bursts of blue light appear in random reflections across the door, from a light source that's neither my lamp nor the occasional flashes of lightning. And now I can hear them. A low, pulsing hum like a yogi's low om. But this sound's moving as well, winding around me, purring, almost a fey dance. And I know that if I turn my head, I'll see them. The deadlights, the will-o-wisps. And really, that's what I ought to do. If I turn to look at them, the face sprites will immediately vanish, the hum with them, and the exposed basement door in the small pit will just be a piece of rusty metal again. I could go ahead and cover up the door, return the spade to its original place, and be on my way back to Portland within the hour. I could still sleep in my bed tonight. But instead, I lean forward and pull on the basement door. It opens easily in my hand. And I'm not surprised to see a staircase leading into the dark. Never mind that the farmhouse never had basement stairs, only a trapdoor hung over a 3-foot drop into the dank crawl space. But it's stairs I see, the mirror of the stairs that would once bring me to my room on the 2nd floor, only now descending into a maw of shadows. Those stairs were, as a child, I heard it. The thing which permeated the house like mildew and eyeless force, which crawled up during storm systems and shuffled its way up creaking risers. It would stagger atop the landing, then leer towards each bedroom door like a drunk. The knob might rattle and it'd pop its black hole eyes through a door jamb if you were fool enough to leave the door unlatched. I'd only ever locked eyes with the thing once, and as I stare into the yawning chasm below me, I knew that this is why I had come. The siren call that's pulling me back, possessing me to break into the storage shed and keep my feet moving even as sanity got further into the rear view. I lied to myself all these years, telling myself I'd moved on, that the thing which resided here no longer had control over me. As I take step after tentative step, I know that on some deeper, more primal level, I have never left this haunted house at all. The staircase ends at the edge of a familiar checkerboard pattern, an area rug kept in the farmhouse kitchen. The fabric looks blood red in the shine of my headlamp. But even so, for a brief moment, the image of a safe and lazy Sunday overtakes my vision. A day in autumn, it must have been. The aroma of a fresh-baked pie made of the crabapple trees in the field, of baked beans and brown bread, and the ugly squelch as my foot sinks into a rug, kicking loose not the smell of frying bacon, but of squirrels rotting in an attic. Something skitters in the darkness. I scan the perimeter with my lamp, but nothing. The kitchen is remarkably preserved. Buried? Yes. Destroyed? No. Shifted. That's it. The walls canting in slightly, almost opalescent in the headlamp's glow. And with it, that just buried nostalgia, the sense of wonder of being young. If I could just pry it out of its hiding place. Maybe if I take another step. But no, the next step is another squelch, another belch of stale gas. Then two more, almost automatic. I pass the shaker-style kitchen table, lay my right hand on it, and hear the legs creak and pull my hand back with a film of slime. How many meals did we eat at this table? Me, my mother, her mother before her mother before her? What a waste that the table now rots into the earth, a substrate for mushrooms. Aren't you all? A voice seems to speak louder in my head, I'm not sure. Not down here. But it gives me a shiver. Almost prevents me from stepping through the doorway into the remains of the living room. Here the carpet has disintegrated. Granite pebbles poke out like fingernails. To my left would have been the love seat, upholstered in a floral print, an eminently forgettable object, except I would never sit on it. Not after the night when my great-grandmother died on it. I was, 5 at the time? That I didn't know that people could die. I mean, in an abstract way, sure, but someone you knew? I lay awake in bed that night, listening to her ragged breath through the floor of my room, labored, throaty rasps, accompanied by tendrils of cigarette smoke rising through the floorboards as my grandmother chain-smoked, keeping watch. Make it stop, 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 make it stop. I kept whispering to myself, tossing and turning those Star Wars bed sheets. And then the breathing did stop, and that was worse. So no, I don't look left to where the love seat would be. Instead, I look forward and see glimmering eyes. No, not eyes, just the brass buckles of an antique steamer trunk. It's at the far end of the room, seated oddly where the staircase ought to have been if the staircase were not repositioned to be a downstairs walkway. I approach it, the soil giving way beneath my feet, and I experience a sort of funhouse illusion. The room seems to diminish in size around me until, almost without noticing it, I'm on my hands and knees, crawling through clammy, aromatic earth until I'm close enough to flick those brass buckles. Clack, clack. I almost laugh, thinking in one mad moment that I'm some strange pirate retrieving buried treasure. The trunk groans open and the lid starts to rise, then catches on the shallow ceiling. I struggle to maneuver the chest, and it breaks loose from where it's trapped with an uncomfortable creak and a snap. The weight over my head suddenly becomes very present, thousands of pounds of dirt that would eagerly entomb me if any of these rotting load-bearing beams give away. It's time to get out of here, just as soon as I see what's in the chest. After some moments or minutes, time's blurry down here, trying to scoot the trunk forward, I accept it's lodged into place. If I want at the contents, I'll have to stick my hand in blindly. I regain my breath. Has the air always been so thick? It's strained to crack the lid. It flies open with a snap, and the lid smacks the shallow dirt ceiling, pinning my fingers. I grit my teeth, retract my hands, shake off the pain, reach into the darkness. There's maybe 3 inches of clearance. I squeeze in my right arm, my forearm, wriggle up to my elbow. I'm able to reach down, send beetles skittering, touch a surface that's slick, glossy. I move my hand around it until I find an edge, reach further, find a bottom, pull. With a wet smack, something comes loose in my hand. A book. It's about at this moment that I can hear the breathing. I think it must be my memory. Just as the mind in an anechoic chamber starts creating auditory hallucinations, the sensory deprivation of this house tomb has supercharged my imagination, such that I can hear the rattling, ragged breaths of my dying great-grandmother again, superimposed with the voice of my mother. That last voicemail.
Mike, help me. I'm not alone in here. I'm not alone. She's walking. She's walking toward me.
Was it always that obvious? Who else should haunt the house but those who walked its plank floors for so many years? There was no great tragedy here, no madness that led to grabbing an axe, children or spouses hacked to bits and blood soaking the walls. There was just simple living and simple death. But maybe that's enough. For is not the pure, gruesome, simple truth of death, naked and clear by full moonlight, enough to give birth to monsters? Why shouldn't it be? Do you need madness and an axe blade if the simple act of ignoring a phone call can be violence? The breathing is behind me now. Throaty breaths, struggling breaths, a hot air of death on my neck. Can't turn to look. I crawl back from the steamer trunk, scramble through buried muck and out of the remains of the living room, to the funhouse mirror, bent walls of the kitchen, splack against the carpet, and then I am the one creeping up the stairs. A flash of moonlight catches down the stairwell, and for a moment, the stairs don't lead to an overgrown hayfield, but to the second story of the house, where they always did. And at the top of the stairs, there's the doorway to a child's bedroom, a room with a window overlooking a skeletal oak tree. A child whimpering as something creeps up the stairs. A child who is whimpering still. A shotgun blast sound behind me. The framing walls of the kitchen collapse and dirt pours in, a roaring sound like being buried in deep ocean surf. I run up the stairs, each snapping behind me, a living nightmare of that dream where you're trying to run from a monster but your feet plow through marshmallows. In this reality, I reach the top, hurl myself, sprawling into the hayfield, and the farmhouse grave collapses. Burying it with finality this time. Outside, it's progressed from a thin mist to active, throbbing rain. I plod back to my car, halfway convinced this is a waking nightmare, except I have proof that something really did happen. The slimy, decaying black book I have in my hands. My late mother's journal. The lights are still off at Vernon's house as I turn back onto the road. But there's a sudden shriek as I approach, and I flick my headlight off, standing like a still phantom in the dark. "Bella!" he cries from within. "Bella! Bella!" Bella is his wife, dead 10 years at least. I keep walking down the country road in the dark. I left the shovel stabbed in the site of the buried house, and the door to the hay barn unlocked. It will look like some strange grave robber came in the night, and I suppose one did. And if they suspected me, what of it? I sold the house, but its ghosts were still mine. And that was The Buried Farmhouse, a Fred Greenhalgh original for Undertow, performed and sound designed by yours truly. Whew, okay, so let's talk about this story. Like the protagonist, fact and fiction blur in and out as I was writing the story. If you followed my work, you may have heard stories like Dark Passenger and Family Demons, both radio plays that feature a haunted house that's modeled after the one in this story. And that is because, well, my family farmhouse was haunted, and the nature of the haunting is much like what I depicted in the story you heard today, a presence that creeped up and down the stairs and down and forth across the second floor hallway, as well as uncanny floating lights that appeared in the field behind the house. And I suppose this story in some ways started when I made a guest appearance on a podcast called Real Hauntings, Real Ghost Stories back in 2023. By the way, that Real Hauntings, Real Ghost Stories is a terrific podcast you should check out. And I talked a bit about this house with the host, Noah. Noah asked me if I'd ever talked to other family members about it, which that set me off down a little bit of a rabbit hole, not unlike the main character of our story today. I am the middle child of 3 brothers, and it turned out both my brothers had haunting experiences from that house, similar to what I experienced. And coincidentally, around this time, I picked up a book, Dark Woods, Chill Waters, Ghost Tales from Down East Maine by Marcus Labrizzi. Marcus is a folklorist and professor at the University of Maine Machias, and in addition to validating some local folk ghost stories my mom told me while growing up, Marcus's book also includes a chapter about will-o-wisps, the floating lights known to haunt Down East Maine. Also, for Stephen King fans out there, you may know them as the Deadlights. His book really connected with me for all these reasons, and so I set out to meet him, which I did in that summer of 2023. We met at a picnic table on top of Machias, Maine's quote-unquote bad little falls. That's what Machias means in the native language. We had a wide-ranging conversation about the general haunted nature of Down East Maine, and I also took the opportunity to ask him specifically about the haunted farmhouse I grew up in, telling him about kind of what the haunting was like and what I experienced. And Marcus asks me if I'd ever recorded sound at that location. I confessed that I hadn't, though I did bring several sound recorders with me on this particular trip. And so the option was possible, but I asked him, the house has been torn down. Everything's gone but the old hay barn. How do I record, sounds from the house? And he said that, well, sometimes when a haunted structure is gone, the presence remains concentrated in what's left. So if that doesn't sound like enough of a start to a horror movie, Fred's a hold my beer kind of guy. So this leads me to place a field recorder on site at the hay barn, the old summer kitchen, a building which featured prominently in the story you heard today. And no, I did not go and try to dig it up, but it is 100% true that around that time I met the neighbor across the street, a lovely old-time Mainer, not Vernon, but Vernon adjacent. The neighbor told me this thing that is true is that the old house was buried in the field out back, and that crazy detail really lodged itself in my subconscious. What happens to a haunted house when you bury it? And though I knew I personally would never be crazy enough to try and dig it up and see what remains of the haunted house, I thought maybe I could use this story to excavate those haunted ruins. What I did do is capture sounds on my sound recorder. I don't think what I captured will turn anyone from a ghost skeptic into a believer, but I did capture some weird noises at around 3 a.m, like the story you heard today. It happened it was a nice summer day when I went to bed, staying at a nice bed and breakfast in town. That night, it started thunderstorming and raining, and weird stuff started to happen. After the weather changed, I recorded the snorting of a beast, the footsteps walking across gravel, and this odd humming that sort of on a spectral view of audio kind of looks like a will-o-wisp humming around 3 a.m. Do I think I got ghost noises? I don't know. What I do know is I'm never going to camp at that property. I hope you've enjoyed the story today. There are so many haunted house tales out there, and I was not really sure I had much more to contribute, but I can say that this one is truthful in the way that fiction is the lie that tells the truth. And even if you've heard 1,000 haunted house tales, you've never heard mine before now, and I knew I had something of my own to excavate. And as for what is in the journal found by our protagonist in the old steamer trunk, maybe someday we'll crack the cover of it. For now, this is Fred Greenhalgh, and I hope you've enjoyed this journey with me, kicking off our new season, Familiar Haunts. The Buried Farmhouse is a Dagaz Media production, written, performed, and sound designed by Fred Greenhalgh, with music by Marcus Pagala, Epidemic Sound, and Blue Dot Sessions. Undertow is a production of Realm, executive produced by Fred Greenhalgh and Molly Barton.